we never found out like the correct answer for both correct? Does it matter?
We're gonna see.
Okay.
I think that yours might work. All right, finish your drill. Okay. You have 1 more minute to complete your drill. Did everybody turn in their work yesterday?
I wasn't here.
In the bottom of the page.
Raise your hands for me. Who wasn't here yesterday? Nice to see on here who's not here. Darren wasn't here. Anna Kai wasn't here. Is that it? Daria wasn't here. And then everybody else I have a sheet from. All right. I'll give you 30 more seconds to finish up your drill.
Oh, see, I was doing it like this. Oh, we got this next, I guess.
Alright, so we're going to take a pause, we're going to discuss something real quick, and then you're going to have 30 more seconds to finish up. So, there are 2 problems here. It seems like people are relatively clear on number 1. Is everybody okay with problem number 1?
Yeah.
Right? Problem number 2 has something where some people, not everybody, some people are asking a question. Jalen, can you say to the class what that question is? And I don't want an answer yet. We'll just have a brief discussion. Jalen, what's the question?
What is common ratio?
What is a common ratio? There's another name that we've used that means the same thing as common ratio. Can somebody help me think about what is a name that means common ratio? Think for a second. Back to what we've done. Talk to your neighbor. Antonio has it. What's another way of saying common ratio? Another way of saying common ratio. Write it on your paper right now. So everybody, with your partner, write down what's another way of saying common ratio. What's another a synonym for common ratio that we've used before in class that every single person has seen before?
This one at the bottom, the Y is times 8. No, it's times 8.
All right, I want to see a bunch of hands go up. Somebody tell me, what's the name, the synonym, that the same meaning as common ratio? Everybody has it written on their paper. Please raise your hands now. You see more hands go up. A few more hands go up. Gary, you have something up on your paper? Hands up. All right, Nicholas, what is it? Say it loudly so Darren can hear you.
Equal factors over equal intervals.
Did you hear that, Darren? Right? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Not at all? Never done that before? Okay, what does that mean? Nicholas, do you remember what that means? Equal factors over equal intervals.
Isn't it when like you multiply or divide?
Say it loudly so Derek can hear you.
Isn't it when you like multiply or divide?
When you multiply or divide, so factor or equal factors over equal intervals or common ratios means that something is being multiplied or divided. All right, is everybody good? You have 30 more seconds to finish both parts of your drill, okay? And then we'll pass them up to the front.
Oh, let me write my name here.
All right, you don't need to have your name on there. I'm just going to be able to take a look and see how many people understood.
I think it was like,
All right, please pass your papers up to the front. Pass them all up. Pass them up. Can somebody tell me what was the rate of change from the first table? Pass them all up. Pass them all up. Any more? This is the one everybody had. Pass them all up. Pass them all up. Janae, what was the rate of change in the first table? Say it again. 8. All right. Can somebody say that in a little bit more detail? Maybe what does she mean by 8? I'm not saying it's wrong, but maybe a little bit more detail, David. Plus 8 for every 1. Okay, that's a little bit more detail. Can somebody tell me in just a little bit more detail, what is that rate of change of 8 or plus 8 every 1? Just a little bit more detail, Michelle.
Plus 8 on the y-axis.
Plus 8 on the y-axis. Great.
Did I say that right?
It's perfect. There's just one more detail that we can add, Anakai.
For every x you add 8 to the y.
It's plus 8 on the y-axis for every x. Right? So for every x, you add 8 on the y. Is that right? You good on number 1? Right? And then number 2, what's the common ratio? What do we say the common ratio was for this one? Everybody find it? Leah, what was the common ratio? For number 2, so the second problem. Multiply by 8. Can somebody add a little bit more detail to that? Anthony?
For every 1 x you multiply y by 8.
For every 1x, multiply y by 8. Is everybody good on those 2? All right. Here's what you need to do. 2 things. 1, you need to take out your phone and open up your bubble wrap app. 2, you need to grab a computer. They should almost all be working and set up. Grab a computer, open it up, make sure that Desmos opens up. All right? You have 2 minutes to be back at your seat with the computer and your cell phone with the bubble wrap app. I prefer if we have enough that everybody has a computer. Right? Because the computer opens up. You also need to be sure that you're in a pair. So make sure you're in a pair, and at least one person in the pair needs to have a bubble wrap bag. Thank you. Thank you. So, Kiara and Armand. Okay. Kiara, can you come up here and work with all right. For Android, all right. computer, I want each individual person to have one at the end, enough. If not, I have you in the back that we can work on. Hancock can grab a computer, Shanice can grab a computer.
I told you.
Zara, you have a computer? Grab a computer. Alright. On Android, I don't have one I love. So you find one that's ready, we'll take a look at it. Okay? So here's what I want. Everybody is in pairs. Ashley. Alright, Ashley, we'll work together. Alright, do you have an app? You have a bubble wrap app? Alright. So, let's take a look at the paper that I handed out to you that says bubble wrap is awesome. Okay, bubble wrap is awesome. I think that it's going to work better on your phones than on the computer, but if a group is unable to get a bubble wrap app working at all, then I have an online bubble wrap app that you can use. Okay? But we're going to skip that part for right now. Okay? What you're going to do is in your pair, and I'm going to pair it with Ashley, everybody else is in a pair. In your pair, you're going to start up the bubble wrap app. I would prefer, if you have an iPhone in your pair, to use the iPhone, and you're going to use the iPhone on Blitz Pop. Don't start yet, okay? But you're going to use the iPhone on Blitz Pop because Blitz Pop is going to allow you to pop for 1 minute and count how many you pop. Okay, and that's what we're working on here. If you have Android and you have a bubble wrap app, you need to have one that counts your bubbles and counts your time. Okay, counts your bubbles and counts your time. So if you have an Android app, make sure you have that. Otherwise, if you have the Apple, it's Blitz Pop. Right? What I'd like everybody to do right now, is take a look at your paper, okay? And I want you to predict, before we do any popping, make a prediction. I'm sorry, just a second. Those Android people that are still working, I want you to, we'll get it, try to get it figured out, okay? If not, we'll use the online one. But I want you to pay attention right now, Kiara.
Is it called Bubble Wrap or Blitz Pop?
It's called Bubble Wrap
Oh, okay.
Free or something like that on iPhone. Okay? But then once you go into the game, it's called Blitz Pop. Right now, on your paper, I'd like you to write down a prediction. How many bubbles do you think you're going to be able to pop in 1 minute? No. You have to take one. Alright. Well, how many bubbles do you think you're going to... Does everybody see the line where you're writing that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to let the rest of the directions, I'm going to leave the rest to you. You're only popping one person at a time. Okay? Is there an iPhone in every pair of people? Torian and David, you guys have an iPhone? Anakai and Nicholas, you guys have an iPhone? Shanice, you guys have an iPhone? You guys have an iPhone? You guys have an iPhone? Do you guys have an iPhone, Anthony, Armani? You guys have an iPhone, Jalen?
Yep.
iPhone? You guys have an iPhone? Do you have an iPhone? You guys have an iPhone? Alright, so I'm just let you use mine. So we'll just go with the Blitz Pop one. Alright? So, one person's going to be the popper first, while the other person records. I want you to be careful here. I want you to be careful.
You pop one.
Hold on. I want you to be careful. Everybody, look at me, eyes to me, so I can make sure, Amaya, that you're paying very close attention. Anthony. Right? The recorder needs to look very closely when the popper is popping. They need to be watching two things. What two things do they need to be watching? Sorry. The time is one. And Armani?
How many they pop?
And how many they pop. The recorder is going to make recordings every 10 seconds. So you can make a recording right now. Which recording can you put in right now?
0.
For 0 seconds, how many have they popped?
0.
0. So you need to be prepared to write down the number popped 10 seconds from when they start. But here's the problem. When you do Blitz Pop, it's going to be counting down from 60.
Oh.
Does that make sense? So when are you going to make your first recording? At 50. And your second recording? At 40. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
So we're gonna go to Blitz Pop. We're going to
No stopping. No. So, Jalen, that's a good question. Kendra, pay attention. Shanice, Tori Ann. Pay attention. You're not stopping popping. The popper is going to go all the way through. The recorder needs to keep up and write down very quickly those numbers every 10 seconds. You're not pausing the game. Okay? The popper is going to go through for 1 minute, and the recorder needs to make each of those measurements, each of those data points. Okay?
On the graph screen, it doesn't actually count up by tens all the time. One time it counts up by 20.
Oh no. Good point. Does everybody look at the graph, at the table that Anthony's looking at? What does it say?
10, 20, 30, 40, 60.
10, 20, 30, 40, 60. What's missing? 50.
And
So
then
cross out.
40 is missing the other one.
Say it again.
Is it on the other one?
So we need to add, we need to make it count by 10. Right? So in popper 1,
The other one don't have 40.
right, in popper 1, you need to cross out 60, put 50, and then underneath put 60. In popper 2, you need to cross out 50 and 60, put 40, 50, and then underneath put 60. Alright, not intentional. My fault. Everybody good? Alright. This should take how long? 1 minute and then 1 minute, 2 minutes. I think it might take a little bit longer. Right? So let's take about 6 minutes to get all your data recorded, and then we'll look farther down the sheet. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, I'm supposed to be counting this. So we supposed to like start it and then stop once you get the 10.
I definitely feel the pop. You can count.
Oh, I'm paying attention. Wait, alright. The first time you wait for it to go to 50. The second time you wait for it to go to 40, then you start popping. Dang, I thought Michelle was slow. You slow too. At the time, you wait for it to go to 50. I want to hear the sound. You need to stop popping. I am popping.
So you just tap and have
You popped up. I know.
0 to 0. You start at 60 and up. So at 60, you go see how many times. So you go up. This is counting down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alright, cool.
So at 60, I pop 30.
But you should put it on the desk.
And then you look, just watch till it gets to 50.
Alright, now, wait till it gets to 40 and do the popping.
That was his high school.
Oh,
Yeah, that's good. I'm in his high school.
You guys have one person? No, you don't.
oh, I thought you
Better do it. You need to record every 10 seconds.
doing that.
No, where did you record? That's only one. There's another 10. You did it for a whole minute. Right? Try that one more time. We need to hurry up because everybody else is getting ahead of time. What is that?
He went up.
Okay, but you start with 0. Right, so this was the, right, so when 10 seconds have passed, what's the timer going to start?
Oh, Joe,
When 10 seconds have passed, what was the
Do you want? I got higher than you. I have 213. What happened? Oh, exit out. It'll continue your progress.
Yay. That's the thing about this.
I had 213. That's crazy.
Oh, I'm upset. Are you looking professional?
Oh, wait.
I don't feel like doing that, so you making me start over.
Cause I wrote 24 right there, and I'm supposed to write it up here.
So it looks like a lot of
Supposed
people
to
are
write 24 right
finishing
here.
up their second popper. Once you finish up with your second popper, feel free to move on. You have three options down below. You can use your calculator if you have your graphing calculator. You can use Desmos. Desmos should be up on all the computers. And you can use graph paper. You can make a graph and a table on graph paper if you want. Alright?
Come on to see how you did.
So you're on 5. I want you to think carefully about what happened at the end. What the table, what's recorded in the table, and whether or not those answers could possibly happen.
Is there some kind of bubble on the sheet? That's exactly what I counted.
So I think that you're missing what the tape. I think it's not that you didn't look at the screen. I think that you're not looking at the table. Okay? I want you to take a look back at the table again and see what's going on now. Part of it might be having to do with going backwards. So part of it's something else. So I want you to just step it out. Part of it has to do with going backwards.
Oh, this wasn't actually. This was actually.
He's on the second too.
Part of it is not.
Oh, we have to make another. Yeah.
Take a look at that table and see if they say.
Bunch of data is entered.
How do you graph?
So you're not. No, it's on the paper. Did you read it?
Did you do it right? It should, yeah, we did it right. That was it. Yeah. Okay, so what you want to do is click the arrow and go to the table and do it twice first. And then fill your information in.
Okay, what you did is then click on the edit list wheel.
Oh, okay. You keep it on that side, I do this. So, how are we going to start it if it starts at 0, I mean 1, and R start at 0?
Can we change the numbers?
We probably can.
And 0.
Are we starting with yours or mine?
Yours.
Alright, 44.
So you guys are. It's a really
No, you didn't start with 1. Start with 0, then do 10, 20, 30. Just fill it out. Okay, what are we at? 40? 158. Fit it. 50 is 200.
And 60.
Is my high score on here. 213. That's a nice.
I'm glad he didn't make us do Flappy Bird. I would have gone Finn. It's like we're gonna play Flappy Bird to get mad.
Everybody, I want you to
collective
understand
swears
back to your paper.
Wouldn't it be like the amount of times you died?
If you want to use Desmos,
First time, I got 7.
you need to
Second
look
time,
at the directions on the back.
The amount of times you died in Flappy Bird. All you're gonna hear is collective swears around the room.
Right, so
37. Why did you do
really want you to
1?
pay attention on the paper.
Jeez, why do I keep doing that?
Exactly where they're
37.
So we're not going to say that.
20 is
The
63.
paper has 2 sides.
My bubble popping
And
games.
on the back,
89.
directions for how to enter the data and does it.
40 is 113. It took me that long to get 100.
Right? My bubble popping games.
139. And 60 is 165. What if we actually found like the rate of change? Like the typical amount you would pop every second or every 10 seconds.
I'm pretty sure I pop less on this than actual bubble.
Yeah, no, I just twisted it.
Alright. Once your data is entered, click on the edit list wheel. Where's the wheel?
Wheel, yeah. Maybe it's still safety.
Yeah, there it is.
Edit list. And click on the colorful dot next to the Y. Well, it's not colorful anymore, but
Number of bubbles popping when
There we go.
choose the setting with the color. Oh, so this is going to be the color of the line.
Alright, what color do you want?
Red, purple.
I'll do red.
Oh, that's for yours.
What
You're doing it like that?
looking for on your in order to like
And now we're gonna go up to
what does it say on the phone when 10 seconds are gone?
color.
I think we have to do pots for every 10 seconds. Yeah. Okay.
What does it say on the phone? What does the time say on the phone?
Once you have completed your tables and graphs, it's time for some calculations. Calculate the speed. What did I say?
You just said that.
Calculate your predicted for bubbles pop per second.
Show me, go to stat.
The predicted
The predicted.
and then the actual.
Okay.
So then you mean you have to divide this by 60 because this is.
Go back to stat.
Alright, so should we use calculator or calculators on our phone?
Go down.
Yeah, they're here.
Yeah, why not? Wait, what was your predicted one?
I think my prediction.
That dim dimension is
But it's supposed to be 100.
one wrist is longer than the other, so we didn't know what 29
I put
is.
100.
Hey, yours
So
was
we
close
can't
to my
graph.
prediction. Well, mine on the other hand was it's 2 point. So round it off to 3 seconds. 3 bubbles pop per second. Come on.
So mine's 100.
So you have to
divided by 60.
3.
You said round it to 100.
Next to
I mean, it really doesn't say, but I just rounded it up. So I have around
This
2.
For both.
I think so.
Click enter on edit.
That looks great.
Alright, so look, here's the table. Okay, so how do we get that to where it is rented? Alright, and then let's choose the per second step flat. Once you second, you could just step time the clock. Ah! And then clock 1. Turn clock 1 on, make sure it's step clock mode with L. With X letters. So do you put, then you press the Z9.
Where's the edit list?
So, wait, no, they have directions.
32.
Second block,
Oh,
then that one.
my bad.
And then it says, make sure it's on the scattered plot with X list L1 and Y list L2. It says X list L1, Y list L2. Scattered plot.
See the way my brain.
Yay! Because you had to change.
I was medical. We can change our color.
Because, alright, so look. When you went to this, and then you had to, because that was clicked on off, so you had to put on, enter, so we show the dots, zoom 9, right. Oh, okay. So if you're just going to be graphing on graph paper, alright, so can we move to the back now? Alright, so once you've completed your tables and graphs, it's time for some calculations. Calculate your predicted speed for bubbles pop per second. Okay.
So hopefully everybody has their scatter
For
plots
10
just
seconds,
about
it was 30.
finished.
So after I do the
Well, what do you? For 10, it was 38. And for 20, it was 76. how would we
So let's finish the graph.
Alright, so
Is the
it was
graph showing
38
you everything
bubbles
that you want to
popped
see?
for 10 seconds.
Well, I got it.
So we would multiply that? I don't know.
Why do you have to
I'm
zoom
thinking we would divide the
See
power.
both
Alright, so if it's 38 bubbles popped per 10
Because
seconds.
your y values, what's the highest y
That was
value?
my speed. 3.8
So
miles.
you are only going to see,
Wow.
if you zoom out, you'll be able to see all those y values. And then calculate your average speed.
So for this one it was.
So as everybody's finishing up their graph, that's great, and we're gonna have a little discussion in 1 minute on the next portion of your.
So for 1 second, 10 seconds. Divide 45 by 60, and then yours 60 divided by 125. I'll do that. Yeah.
I think we did.
So yours, your prediction was 100. Make sure you divide it by 60 and it has to be.
Oh, make sure you do
You gotta go to the little
So for 60, it's 125 for yours. Divide that by 6.
Oh, he was satisfied.
Now, I'll have to divide 125 by 6.
So everybody, let's have, it looks like just about everybody has their
No,
graphs.
45.
Anthony, just a second. Darren, just a second. Michelle, just a second. Looks like everybody has their graphs just about done. Some people don't have computers. If you don't have a computer, I expect you to have a calculator in your hand because you're doing it on your calculator. But if you don't have your data displayed graphically in front of you, you're going to have trouble as we move forward. So Armani and Nicholas,
Oh, just yours.
it's the two of you that I'm worried about at the moment. Yours is on your phone? And do you have?
Yeah,
No.
both about
No, you just
That's
got
the problem. That's the problem. Right? Nicholas, do you have your data? All right, so after you have your graph, your scatter plot, then you're asked to make some calculations. What's the first calculation that you're asked to do? What's the first calculation that you're asked to make on the back of that paper? Number one.
Calculate the predicted.
Darren?
Calculate your predicted speed for bubbles pop per second.
Calculate your predicted peak speed for bubbles pop per second. What does that mean? How do you make that calculation? What does it mean to calculate the predicted speed for bubbles pop per second? And how do you make that calculation? Let's say, what do you say?
When I tried to find the difference between my bubbles pops.
Okay. So I think you're jumping ahead. So let's focus on the question. Darren, can you say that question one more time?
Calculate your predicted speed for bubbles pop per second.
Calculate your predicted speed, keyword here is predicted, for bubbles pop per second. How are we going to do that? Adam, what do you think? Take a guess. What do you think? What's a key thing that you're going to be looking at in making this calculation?
Your predicted bubbles pop.
This is one that's based on your predicted bubbles pop. Right? So at the beginning, I asked everybody to write down a prediction. But you were predicting for how many bubbles you would pop in what amount of time today? In 60 seconds. And Darren, what am I asking for in that first calculation?
You'll predict speed for how many bubbles you pop per second.
Per second. Per how many seconds?
Per 60 seconds.
Not per 60 seconds. Per 1 second. So you made a prediction for 60 seconds, and now I'm asking to make a calculation for per second. Okay? Then, number 2, Anthony, what does number 2 say?
I'm gonna calculate your actual average speed for bubbles popped per second.
Calculate your actual average speed for bubbles popped per second. Okay? And this is going to be, this is based on the word average, but there's an interesting distinction here. So I'm going to let you work on that. And then down below, in number 3, what are you asked to do, Zari?
And number 3, it says calculate your actual speed for each of the 10-second intervals pop.
Right. So for each of those 10-second intervals, you're going to do some calculations. Okay? You're going to write about those calculations down below. You're going to be looking, paying very close attention to your graphs as you do it. Okay? Make sure that you record all your thoughts on this paper, and you're going to have a homework tonight that asks you to think carefully about what you're looking at in your graph. So, if you created a graph in Desmos, please email it to yourself so that you can have it tonight to look at if you need to. There's a function that you can send it or save it.
You emailed me, so I can't get on it.
Right? So that you can access this graph later on when you're doing your homework tonight. If you have your information on your calculator, you can just save it on your calculator, that's fine. Alright? We have about 10 minutes. Okay, so you may have to sign in order to send it. Most of you have already signed up because we used Desmos when we were doing our drawing pictures with quadratics. Okay. We have about 10 minutes. You need to finish your calculations before you leave today. Make sure you finish 1, 2, and 3 before you leave today. Make sure you have your graph saved in some way that you can access it later. Kiara.
We was all supposed to show like ours on there.
You only need to have your information on your graph. Anthony.
First, how do we get, what was the password for, and, one last thing, what does it mean by average speed? Does that mean you add up all the,
That's a good question. And I'm not going to answer. Yeah. So Anthony, that's a good question, everybody, and we'll take an opportunity. I would really like to see some discussions about this. What do I mean by average, your actual average speed? That's a really important question. As you're thinking about that question, there's 2 ways of solving that problem, and we'll see if people come up with the different ways so that we can compare those 2 ways of finding average speed. Okay? We have about 7 minutes left in class, so I want you to be working on 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Make sure you finish your calculations for predicted speed, average speed, and each of the time frames.
Did you already graph it and stuff?
Got creator now.
It's easy.
There we go.
That was optional.
It was very optional. So I sent it to you, and I have to send it to
I'm
myself.
gonna grab calculators and their actual. Wait, how are we gonna do this? Will we make another one? I think
Give it a try. I'm not going to help you. right away. If you try something, we can talk about what you did. If you want, before we have.
I appreciate it.
I want to see the work that you do. No, I want to see you try it. Do the work, and then we'll be able to have a discussion about the work that you did. But I don't want to have the discussion first. Give it a try first, okay? It's not. You made a prediction.
That's my main thing.
Right. So there's it's not a guess.
I have no. It's 1.2. If I do 60 divided by 50, it's gonna be 1.2. But if I do 50 divided by 60,
That would be point second. That would be right because it's by the second, not the minute.
so it'll be 1.2 bubbles per second.
Yes. So what did you do that? What did I do?
Oh, but you were just being smart with me, so I don't know. You should ask the teacher.
You're right.
Darren, can you explain what you did?
I explained what I
Cesaria?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Atkinson.
My answer, I said that.
So, what's the beginning of the page? So how many, you did 40? So you would divide 60 divided by 40. Okay. And then that's how you would get the
Per second
one.
Thank you.
Does that make sense, Jamisha?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I think so.
Take a look at Zaria's work.
That's what I did. So that's what I did. I told you.
I know, but I want you to take a look at the work. Okay, so, Zaria, does that make sense? Does what they explained make sense?
You divide the 40, your prediction by the extra time.
So, there's a, Darren, Jamisha, and Zaria, pay attention very closely. There's a discrepancy between what each person is saying. One way of describing what you're doing is correct, and one way of describing what you're doing ends up with an answer that doesn't make sense in the context of the problem. So, for example, if you thought that you would pop 1,000 bubbles in a minute, how many would you be popping a second? Would you be popping a lot of bubbles in a second, or very few bubbles in a second? A lot of bubbles in a second. If you thought that you would pop only 10 bubbles in a minute, would you be popping a lot of bubbles every second, or very few bubbles every second? Very few. So I want you to think about that carefully, okay? Because it's a very simple calculation that you're doing, but one way of doing it is correct, and one way of doing it ends up with an answer that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to come back, I'm going to hand these out, and come back down to see which one you guys have decided on. All right?
You said something different from me?
For what?
This one.
Now, didn't you say do 60 divided by the number that you thought that
So you got 1.2, I got 1.3. What did you get?
I did 2. Because you said take the 60, right?
Yeah.
And then divide it by the number I predicted, and I predicted 30 bubbles, and it's only 2. So would that mean I'd be popping 2 bubbles per second?
You said something.
I got 1.5.
I got like something in that one range.
I got something in the one range. I got 1.2. You got 1.2.
What was your prediction for overall there? 50. So do you think it makes sense that you could pop 1.2 every second?
No, you can't pop half a bubble.
Is it because you can't pop half a bubble? Does 1.2 every second end up with a prediction of popping 50 in a minute? Why not?
Yes. Oh, because like it's a second and you pop at 1 point, that means you pop at 1 and then half of it. It's not possible.
It's not because it's not possible. That's not the reason. This is, you can pop half of 1 second if you find enough gravity. Sorry, does it make sense? prediction of 50, but pop 1.2 per second. 1.2 every second. And then you end up with 60 in 60 seconds. Alright, we're going to have this discussion. Make sure you think carefully about your calculations. We'll come back and discuss it tomorrow.